My name is Teresa Larson. I'm talking with Mr. Harold Rake on April 20th, 2011 in his home here in Ames. Mr. Rake, do I have your permission to talk to you?
Yes, you do.
To record your voice?
Yeah.
Tell me where you were born.
Jefferson, Iowa, August 19th, 1916.
Well, you're just a young fellow.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
Jefferson High School, that's all.
What did you do after high school?
A little bit of everything.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, I didn't do, trained to be a projectionist, but there wasn't enough work in the town there. Well, I got interested in music. I got in the dance band, so that was the main thing. And I had my father, after he ran a neighborhood grocery store, and after he died, my mother and I kept running it. So that was the daytime work, worked at night, then done various other odd jobs. And that's the way it went until about the last 2 years before I went in service. I worked at the grocery store.
And when did you go into the service?
Went in October 1942, got out December 1945.
Men, after they've been in service, then their life kind of opens up for them again.
Yeah.
There's different choices that you have now.
Yeah.
What choices did you make?
Well, I could either go to school, college, or take advantage of a 52-20 club.
Tell me about that.
But you got $20 for 52 weeks while you was looking for work. But you was required to work in the field that you wanted to. I went downtown the first day I got home, and the projectionist at the theater, I met him downtown. He found out I'd been doing it in the Army then. He's the one that trained me years ago. He said, "You want a job, relief?" Well, I went that night. In order to get on the payroll, I had to do some other job. So I was part-time doorman, and they trained me for that year.
And this was in Jefferson, Iowa.
In Jefferson.
Right.
Then that fall, I got a chance to go to visual instruction out here.
At Iowa State University.
I worked for Harold Kusier, film work, projection, film library and stuff. Then I saw I still got the itch for the 35 millimeter. So I called downtown to Joe Gerbrach. He says, "I don't have any openings right now. Well, could you come down? We'll check you out." So I went down. And he said, "We'll pay you for checking out." I was surprised, you know.
Now, tell me what checking out means. What did you have to do?
Just get used to their equipment here and his style of running, how he wanted stuff run. Well, about a week, after I went out about a week, they had an opening for me at the Capitol. Be Friday night, Saturday night, all day Sunday.
And first of all, for people who might not recognize that name of that theater, where was that theater?
At the end of Main Street, down by the Dairy Queen. The Maid-Rite, yeah. Yeah.
And so that would be on the east end.
Yeah. So I took that Capitol, I could work that in with the job at the college. They gave me all day Saturday, Friday night, and Saturday night. Well, at the end of the year, they decided to run the Capitol full time. And if they'd done that, I'd lose that Capitol work. They want to put one man in there. Well, I wasn't making enough on the college job to support me, so I gambled with them. It was going to be a 3 months gamble. Well, after 3 months, they decided to close it up again. So they put me in the varsity to fill in the time I missed at the Capitol, kept yet. And come summertime, they said, "We don't want to lose you. What are you going to do?" I said, "I may go back to Baltimore with my Army buddy and work there this summer." They said, "Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. You can run their vacations, the Capitol, and their nights off, then paint canopy letters the rest of the summer. And we'll give you the time, have you fall." Well, that summer, the operator at the Ames decided to take advantage of the GI Bill of Rights, go back again, finish his degree in industrial arts. I got his job. So I've been full-time ever since. So that's my history of projection.
What did a projectionist get paid when you first started?
Very little.
Can you tell me in dollars?
Well, at Jefferson, when I come over here in 46, they got 35 cents an hour.
That'd be kind of hard to live off of.
Yeah, and when I come to Ames, it was 75 cents an hour.
Ooh, that was big time.
Yeah. But I started full-time at $45 a week. I wound up at 140 after 30-some years.
So let's go back to how you got experience learning how to be a projectionist. You first learned in Jefferson.
Yeah.
Okay, so teach me like I was going to learn how to do it. What would you tell me to do if I walked into the projection booth? What would be my first job, or what would the first thing I would do if I was a beginner?
Well, you just hang around a night or two, see how it's going. Then you'd start in on threading up.
Threading up, okay.
Putting the film in the machines. Then, after that got good, we learned how to make the changeover from one machine to the other. Then after that, we'd get you used to the carbon arc lights. We just go in phases. Then there's various other things, how they want the show run and everything. But it's basically threading up, changing over, and running the arc lights. Because you got to constantly change the carbons to keep that stuff moving right. The right length and stuff in there.
We'll talk about that in a little bit later because
Yeah.
I know we have a visual aid to talk about that. So
Yeah.
hang on to that thought. We'll come back to that a little bit. So describe what a movie projection room looked like when you walked in.
Just a moment.
Sure.
Could I leave?
Yes, you can leave. Mr. Rake, you brought a book to show me called The Complete Projectionist. Tell me a little bit about this book and where you got it.
I got it from operator in civilian theater in Northern Ireland, which I hung out a few days.
And this would be something that you could use almost like a textbook.
Yeah,
I mean, this,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Let's open it up and show me something here's inside.
There is the basic mechanism of the projector, how it's set up.
And we were talking about the negative carbon and the positive carbon. Can you point to those and why that's important?
There's the positive, there's the negative. And we turn the switch on, put the current to them. Then you turn a knob and what they call kissing the carbons together. Then that ignites it. Then you pull it back and line it up on your lines up on here. Then there's a motor to feed them.
And what would happen if you didn't do it properly?
If you didn't do it properly, you probably didn't have enough carbons in, you'd run out of light and have a blackout. You'd be in trouble. Sometimes you could stretch it if you caught it in time by cutting the power down to the lamp. And that's happened quite a few times. That's just one of the things.
Did that ever happen to you?
A few times.
And is that when
That was one of the things that I was taught when I learned to be a projectionist over at Jefferson.
what was that?
How to stretch carbons out. That happened.
We were just talking about stretching out the carbon, and if you could point and show how it made the light and where it reflects and how it goes out through the lens. If you could show me, Mr. Rake.
Well, just the light throws it to the screen, and this reflector is adjustable. Then one of these knobs and stuff, you adjust it so you take all the shadows and everything out, so you get what they call a clear field. That's on this type of carbon.
Okay, Mr. Rake, we are looking at a picture. Tell me about this picture.
That was taken the last day that I worked for the theaters at Ames, May 15th, 1978.
And tell me what projector you're standing next to.
That's the number 2 projector at the Ames Theater. And either one of those arcs is the ones that's down at the Historical Society now.
How would we know if you worked on one of those? Did you ever leave your mark on one of those?
No.
No? Are there very many of these around?
The only way I could tell by the outside of them,
You can. How?
by how the finish was and stuff.
We were just talking about the actual projector itself.
Yeah.
And that the Ames Historical Society has one from the Ames theaters.
They ain't got the lamp yet.
Yes.
They got the arc light. I
Right.
don't think they have the projector.
Right. They just have the
The
arc.
Yeah.
Right. Well, tell me about this. You said Joe Gerbrach hired you. Tell me about this guy.
What?
Joe Gerbrach hired you, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that guy.
Well, I was available and he hired me. But when I went to go full time, when the other guy left, he told the chief operator we better advertise to replace Norm. They said, we got the guy right here in town. We got Harold in town. He said, well, I don't know whether he's had enough experience. Dick says he had experience, and I know he'll keep the projectors clean and do what we put mostly new equipment in that fall. He said, I want it taken care of, and I know he'll do it. That was it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
What was it like to work for Mr. Gerbrach?
Better not talk about that.
Was he a perfectionist?
He was a perfectionist, so I have to say for him, he was a wonderful theater manager. He ran good theaters, ran good clean theaters. And the patrons is always number one, please them.
But he might have been hard to work for. He expected a lot out of you.
Yeah. He was hard, he's a perfectionist. Yeah.
Did you get to know him socially?
No,
No.
there was quite a gap there, I have to say.
Did they ever have any staff member parties or times when the workers at the theater got together?
No,
No.
just a bunch got together after work is all.
Well, you grew up then, or not grew up, but most of your professional life, you were a night owl.
Yeah, yes it was. That's right. Dance business and stuff.
So after the movies, was there a place in town that you and your buddies like to go to?
Oh, we used to go downtown to a little pub once in a while. And either wind up at the Frango Cafe or State Cafe. That was about it.
Those names are familiar.
Yeah.
That's familiar. Mr. Gerbrach really liked to promote. He used to like to get people down to the theaters by having, stunts and inviting people. Do you remember any of those things that Mr. Gerbrach liked to do?
No, I can't recall that.
Sometimes he'd have things out in front of the theater and that sort of thing.
Oh, he used to make set pieces, set them inside down by the screen. Then we have to turn the spotlight on and spotlight them every once in a while. Stuff like that, did little stuff, promotion stuff like that.
What time did you show up for work usually? What time did you usually come in for work?
Well, get there about a half hour before the show started in the afternoon. But if you had a show change, you had to get there in the morning. If you had maintenance work to do, you had to work mornings. So you really had about a 50 to 60 hour week, actually what you was. You could go anytime.
What did you have to do to maintain the film room? What did you have to do to maintain the projection room?
Well, you had to, when you got the show in, you had to inspect every foot of it.
Really?
Yeah, put it through on your rewinder there.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, you see.
Okay. All right. We'll show that later.
Inspect every foot of it.
Mm-hmm.
See if there's torn, sprocket holes, the condition of the film, whether it was scratched or not.
Mm-hmm.
In order, when it went back to change, they couldn't get you for that damage that was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how, let's say it's an hour and a half movie. How many reels would there be?
Hour and a half, the 20-minute reel, be about 5 reels.
Okay.
But some of them went 8, 9, 10, some's a longer one. Gone with the Wind and stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you ever project Gone with the Wind? Did you ever do that movie?
Oh, about several times.
Several times?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you come in the morning and you have to inspect the film and
Yeah.
get it back,
Yeah.
get back in the can right.
Yeah.
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 And did you ever have to maintain the film or repair sprockets or that kind of thing?
Well, if you replace the sprockets, you cut it out.
Mm.
And that would shorten your film up.
Mm-hmm.
And that would cause things to jump around and stuff. But you could, if you didn't take it out, you'd have a bust and a pile up in the machine.
Did that ever happen? Did you ever have a pile up?
I had my share of them. Especially if it broke
Okay, I have a picture here.
down in here.
Okay.
That sound head.
I'm gonna hold this up. You were saying right about in here, if you're
Yeah.
rubbing up that sound head. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but cause it to pile up. And if you did get it in time, you'd get 30, 40 foot of film in there. And it'd be accordion pleated.
Oh,
Then you have to straighten that out and hope to, heck, you never heard about it from the film exchange. I was lucky on that. I never had a call on that, all the busts I've had and stuff.
So, if there was a problem, I bet your adrenaline just went crazy because it was almost like a triple play in baseball. You had to work fast, you had to know what you were doing,
Yeah,
because you had to get the film back up because there was an audience out there.
yeah, especially the college. That college bunch lets you know something was wrong.
So mostly you worked at the Collegian and the Ames Theater.
I worked at Ames most of the time.
Ames most of the
Yeah.
time. So you were out there with those collegiate kids.
Yeah. But I took care of the varsity. That was one of the, after I was about a year full time, they put me in charge of the varsity, keeping it clean, see if it was checked out before showtime.
Mm-hmm.
Then eventually, we added theater stuff, just had all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The longest ever at the Collegian was about 3 months,
Okay.
when one operator got sick before we got another one in. I filled in until we got another fellow to come in.
Yeah. Did anything ever funny happen when you were projecting films?
Oh, yeah. Not what I happened, but had a couple instances up the varsity. One guy he run the show one day, time for changeover. Well, he's standing by the machine, the scene going on, the guy was hypnotizing the guy with a watch. And Bob got interested, didn't get hypnotized, but just enough to take off the cue marks. He missed the changeover, he never lived that one down.
He got hypnotized.
Another time, as I mentioned before, the film would get pieces cut out, maybe the sound had a word or something to go. Another show, a guy fired again, and the sound wasn't there. So Bob, he'd wait for that, open up the observation port, go bang. Those two was about the funniest.
You just had to, well, if the film was damaged and you lost that little bit of sound, then
Yeah.
you had to
The
improvise.
audience got a kick out of it.
did you work 7 days a week practically? Or did you
Well,
have a
we
day
had
off?
a day off eventually. Well, the first week we got a night every 2 weeks though.
Is that all?
Then we finally got a night off a week.
Mm-hmm.
Then we finally got a day off a week, but most of the time, very seldom I get a full day off. Either something go wrong, they call me in, or have a show to change on that day.
Mm-hmm. What does show to change mean? You mean you've got a new show to load on the
Yeah,
reels?
Put one at night, you call, ship it out, you put it back on the reels that come in,
Mm-hmm.
ship it out, next day take the new one up, put it on your, what you call your house reels there.
Mm-hmm.
Because those shipping reels, you couldn't use them, most times they bent pretty bad.
That
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So you want to have a good. So you've got to spool that off
Yeah,
and spool it back on
yeah.
before you put it on your projector,
Yeah,
or to have the arc go through it.
then
Wow.
you have your theater ads to make up.
Mhm.
That was very important for Joe. Everybody else called them previews, he called them theater announcement reels.
And did you get pieces of film from Hollywood that you made up your own advertising or your?
No, there's a National Screen Service
Mhm.
furnished that. But Joe, he liked to cross plug between the theaters. So we'd keep the trailers and cut pieces out of them, just the lettering and the title.
Mhm.
Then we'd use the record player behind that because it'd be all chopped up. But you have to finally stop that. The film company, trailer companies didn't like it. They wanted those trailers back because that was money.
Mhm.
So we finally quit that.
Are any of your friends that were projectionists, are they still around? Do you see them?
There's one left in town.
Is that right? And you have coffee with that person? Or?
No, I took this scene very seldom.
Uh-huh. But you spend a lot of time
Yeah,
with them.
yeah,
They would be good friends.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you ever get tired of watching movies? I just have to ask.
Yes, I did at times.
Uh-huh. But are there movies that I mean, you've probably seen more movies than most people in Ames.
Yeah.
Are there ones that just stand out in your memory, that you just are so memorable?
Yeah. Best years of our life.
I think that won some Academy Awards, didn't it?
What?
Didn't it win some Oscars?
Yeah, the fellow that played the crippled war veteran in there,
Mhm.
he only was in one movie. That's the only movie he's ever in. He got an Academy Award for it.
Why did you like the film?
What?
Why did you like the movie?
It was just something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I just liked it, liked the acting and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Are there other movies you liked?
Well, I like Gone with the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
Musicals, I like South Pacific. I liked all the musicals.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were a band guy. You like
see,
music.
so that was pretty well set that way.
Did you get to have a band? Did you get to have a band when you were living in Ames?
No,
No, you had to kind of give that up.
no, my band work quit after I got out of the Army. I just done very little work at Jefferson. Oh, I was there before I come to Ames. But that's how I got back into projection, is through the band work in the Army.
Mm-hmm. What about the audiences? Were audiences in Ames always polite? Or did they sometimes
Well,
act up?
They was, as a rule, very good, except those students get a little bit loud. And another problem we have out at the college there, we get a film that had some heavy martial music in it. The boys, they get stomping, and we'd have to either turn the lights on, turn the sound off, tell them to calm, because that steady pounding like that could go through the floor, you know. Just like the Army, when you go across the bridge, they take you out of step, because they don't want that steady pounding. Oh, we used to have quite a time with that.
I'm sure you saw some changes in how film was projected over the years.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how some of the changes that you saw?
Well, the first change, they changed the film stock for the first, went from burning films and the film that didn't burn for safety factor. Then we, in the early 50s, they got this idea of the big screens and wide screens. I went through that, then CinemaScope come out, and stereophonic sound. Then we had a couple ill-fated 3D pictures that didn't work very good. That was a mess. But basically it was, when they changed the format on the screen, that was pretty messy for a while, because they still continued to photograph the film the full frame height. And these ratios, when they went to wider screens, you had to cut the size of the picture down top to bottom. And that would cut part of the picture off, so we always had to keep them in frame with the head, keep their heads in.
Yes.
And that was a mess, and finally they got so they photographed the film with wider frame lines and printed it down.
Now, I may be wrong about this, but CinemaScope, didn't you need 3 projectors to make that work?
No, just one.
Just one.
You needed 3 amplifiers
3 amplifiers, that's
to
what
run
you
the
need.
stereophonic sound.
That's right.
Actually 4. You put in 3 new amplifiers.
Okay,
Those right there, I think. is
let's
the one.
see.
Is that the old Western Electric? I think that's it. That's the old Western Electric. The stereo's over here on the wall.
Okay,
Well,
we'll
there
look
was
at that.
3 speakers behind the stage. And the main speaker put out the sound, the main sound. Side speakers was the effects. And let's see. You have to have actually 4 amplifiers because you're 3 for the stereo system. Then the old amplifier had to work your monitor speaker in the booth.
Just going back to some of the other jobs in the theater, did you ever have to be an usher? Did you ever take tickets?
Well, not names, but at Jefferson, I changed canopy, took tickets. I never sold tickets, that's one thing I did.
But you pretty much did
Yeah.
almost everything. Yeah. Well, it was a good career.
Oh, actually, the first time I ever hung around the theater, I was about 6 years old. My folks ran a boarding house and a restaurant in Jefferson for a while. The theater owner used to come there to eat. So she said if you'd come down and put the handbills out in the cars on band concert night, you'd see free movies and 1 bowl of milk a week. That was my first job. And I got interested in, how I got interested in projection, my dad bought me a magic lantern when I was 5 years old, and that hooked me. Then I had a couple toy projectors, then had that training. After sophomore year, they rebuilt the theater there, and when I got the canopy job, then I started hanging out in the booth. And I observed for 2 or 3 years before I even touched the machine.
I was going to ask you if there's anything else you would have rather done, but I think you answered that question. I think that was just the perfect job for you.
Yeah, yeah,
This is the perfect job.
yeah. Because that was all my life.
Well, thank you very much for talking with
Yeah.
me today.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate
Yeah.
that. Mr. Rake, tell me a little bit more about being in the armed services.
Okay.
Because you were in Northern Ireland, I believe?
Yes.
Okay, and I think, start with telling me a little bit about being a drummer in a band there first.
Yeah, okay. I was a drummer in the band in Northern Ireland, a little 5-piece band. And in order to get assigned to the section and transferred over, so they'd have me for the band, they couldn't carry me as a musician, but they could carry me as a projectionist. They asked me, so I was do projection work ever since. That was in England, and was in France, Germany. Then after our output broke up, when I go back through France, I found a army place there, and about 4 or 5 days in the booth there, I learned that projector system. Went back to England, went down to the theater one day to look at their booth. While I was up there, the chief operator got called downstairs and said he could go home if he had a replacement. So he asked me if I'd work. So I worked there. Then about a week before we left for home, I come from work to barracks at supper time. There's a note on the desk to see the commanding officer, and I thought, what have I done now? I come in there and he says, you've been selected to be a projectionist on the Queen Mary. It'd be 16 millimeter on there. We got to furnish a projectionist. So he said, you go down with the advance party. So 4 of us went down. We got a room with 2 bunk beds in it, had our own private bath. And I come home in style. And run 1 movie a day, 2 hours a day.
And this might have been maybe 1946 or 7 or
45.
45. Well, that's a good story.
And we'd run 1 movie a day, and at night, if the sea was rough, we'd all go down and help hold the screen up while they're running it for the KPs. One night it was rough. It took, it was 5 projectionists. We each run 1 movie piece and 1 at the KPs. This other 4 went, all 4 of that one night. We'd take 2 of us at a time, take turns, about every 15, 20 minutes and splits, keep that screen up there. So we had quite a varied projectionist life. I've worked in several theaters and civilian theaters in England and stuff.
Mr. Rake talked about carbon rods, and we'll put those right on the table. Can we lay those right there? There we go. Okay. Now, why were those so important?
What?
Why were those so important?
Because that made the light to put the picture on the screen.
Your box says fragile. Do they break easily?
Yeah. You drop it, they'll break.
Mm-hmm. And are they expensive?
Oh, they weren't cheap, but.
Mm-hmm. Are they made anymore?
No, it's hard to find these. He had a little trouble finding them because with this automation now in the theater, it's all xenon lamps because you can't get now all the film is on one, what they call a platter now. And you don't have reels and stuff anymore. And you can't, no carbon arc can last that long. You have to get about 2 reels out of a full carbon.
So how long did these last?
Oh, about, get 40, 50 minutes out of them.
Wow. So you constantly had to pay attention to those.
Oh, yeah.
You really did.
Because every time you make a changeover, you have to check to see if they had a right length. You can take the thing clear back as far as they go, put a new in, you get about 2 reels that way. Then you'd have to maybe adjust them again or take them out and then use them on shorter reels.
Do we have any pictures to show where those would have been in, let's see, do you have any pictures to show where these would have been installed? Let's kind of look here.
Carbon fit in there. And this chute was about back in here. And that, as this copper burnt, it formed balls and drip off. And that catch it, put it down there, and I'll see where your negative is. There's your negative, the small one back in like that. under that clamp. That held it up.
There, that's a good way to show me.
You had a
Thank you.
V guide on this that held that one out. Right there. There's the guide.
Okay.
And you brought them together like that.
And that did.
A ball of fire, and that was your light.
That's the light. Yep.
And the reflector through the projection mechanism through the lens and onto the screen.
You really had to have mechanical aptitude for this job.
What?
You had to have mechanical aptitude.
Yeah.
You had to have a
Yeah.
mechanics approach to life in some ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have to.
In this picture, we are looking at Joe Gerbrach's son-in-law. And what is he standing next to? That, describe what this is right here.
That's a perilous mag arc light.
So that's the arc light that's going to create the light for the projection, okay? And we were looking at the carbon rods. Can you see in that picture where they are?
There's the positive where it's coming in getting pretty short.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see the negative because the door is closed there.
Okay, if you'll hang up right there, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Just hold that picture just like it is. Let's see if we, okay, thank you.